At the shooting range, loud laughter erupted when a brown-haired woman stood up holding a rifle. A young soldier whistled mockingly. "Watch out, she might shoot herself." The shot rang out, but the bullet left no visible mark on the target. Laughter exploded across the range. "I told you she doesn't know anything!" But the range officer walked over and silently pointed toward the concrete wall behind the target. The entire range fell dead silent. Her name was Reina Vasquez, 30 years old with long brown hair that she kept in a neat military regulation style. She had a slender build that made her appear smaller and less imposing than most of the soldiers around her, and quiet, observant eyes that seemed to take in everything while revealing nothing about her own thoughts or experiences. Reina worked as a logistics coordinator for an Army training unit, responsible for managing ammunition supplies, coordinating equipment distribution, and ensuring that all weapons and gear were properly maintained and accounted for during training exercises. Her position required organizational skills and attention to detail, but to most of the soldiers who trained at the facility, she was simply support staff. To the infantry soldiers and special operations trainees who dominated the training programs, Reina was part of the background personnel who made their exercises possible. She was the person who distributed ammunition before training sessions, who cleaned weapons after exercises, and who filed the paperwork that kept the facility operating smoothly. "She's good at her job with supplies and inventory," said Staff Sergeant Williams during a conversation with his training squad. "But obviously, she doesn't have experience with actual combat training. Her work is administrative support, not tactical operations." Corporal Martinez was more dismissive in his assessment. "Look, she's competent with counting rounds and managing equipment lists. But when it comes to actual marksmanship and weapons handling, that requires specialized training that support personnel don't receive. Different skill sets entirely." During competitive shooting exercises, groups of soldiers would gather around the firing line, trying to achieve the highest scores and tightest groupings with various weapon systems. They often made jokes about having a supply clerk managing their ammunition distribution, assuming that Reina's knowledge was limited to logistics and paperwork. Reina never corrected these assumptions or tried to educate the soldiers about her background and qualifications. She simply focused on her assigned responsibilities, ensuring that every aspect of the ammunition management and equipment tracking was handled with professional excellence. But what the combat soldiers didn't see were the small acts of expertise and care that Reina provided beyond her official duties. She regularly helped new trainees properly adjust their rifle sights and scope settings, ensuring that their weapons were zeroed correctly for optimal accuracy. Her technical knowledge seemed to go far beyond what logistics training would provide, but she never made a show of these skills. When soldiers experienced equipment malfunctions during training, Reina would quietly assist with troubleshooting and repairs, often identifying problems that more experienced shooters had missed. She never took credit for these contributions, simply ensuring that training could continue without delays. She maintained detailed knowledge of each weapon system's performance characteristics, noting subtle variations in accuracy and reliability that could affect training outcomes. This attention to detail often prevented equipment failures that could have compromised safety or learning objectives. In her jacket pocket, Reina carried a small silver challenge coin that had been with her for several years. The coin was worn smooth from handling, and engraved on its surface was information that would have stunned anyone who understood its significance. Kraken Unit, 211 Eliminations. Challenge coins were military traditions used to recognize exceptional service and achievement, but this particular coin represented something far more extraordinary than routine recognition. The number 211 eliminations indicated verified neutralization of enemy combatants under combat conditions, a level of sniper achievement that placed the holder among the most elite marksmen in military history. She would touch the coin sometimes during quiet moments, remembering teammates who had depended on her precision shooting to survive dangerous missions and return safely to their units. One time I had my scope set wrong and she quietly fixed it for me. When I asked how she knew, she just smiled. New recruits' testimony. The shooting competition began on a crisp Tuesday morning when the training unit had organized marksmanship evaluations for soldiers preparing for advanced combat roles. The exercise was designed to test accuracy, consistency, and performance under pressure using standard military rifles at various distances. Throughout the morning, soldiers took turns demonstrating their shooting skills, with scores posted on a visible board that created friendly competition among the participants. The atmosphere was confident and boisterous, with experienced marksmen showing off their abilities and newer soldiers trying to prove themselves worthy of advanced training opportunities. Sergeant Peterson, who was overseeing the exercise, had been watching the competition when he noticed Reina standing quietly near the ammunition station, observing the training with obvious interest while managing the supply distribution for the exercise. "Hey Vasquez," Sergeant Peterson called out during a break in the competition. "Why don't you take a shot? Let's see what our logistics specialist can do with a real rifle." The suggestion was clearly meant as entertainment rather than a serious evaluation of marksmanship skills. The soldiers gathered around with obvious amusement, expecting to witness an embarrassing demonstration of the difference between support personnel and trained marksmen. "Sarge, she probably doesn't even know which end the bullets come out of," laughed Private Johnson, a young soldier eager to impress his more experienced colleagues. Corporal Davis was more direct in his skepticism. "Don't waste good ammunition on someone who's never had proper shooting training. This is supposed to be a serious marksmanship evaluation, not amateur hour." But several other soldiers encouraged the idea, seeing it as an opportunity for some light-hearted entertainment during what had been a serious and competitive training session. "Come on," said Private Rodriguez. "Let her try one shot. It'll be funny to see how far off the target she can miss." Reina approached the firing line with obvious reluctance, not because she was intimidated by the weapon or the audience, but because she understood that her performance might reveal capabilities that she had deliberately kept hidden during her time in logistics assignment. As she picked up the standard-issue M4 rifle, her handling of the weapon immediately suggested familiarity that went beyond casual observation of training exercises. She checked the rifle's safety mechanisms, examined the sight settings, and positioned herself with movements that demonstrated professional training. "How does she know proper rifle handling procedures?" whispered Staff Sergeant Williams to his assistant. "Those aren't techniques you learn from supply manuals." But the soldiers were more interested in the entertainment value of watching a support worker attempt something they considered far beyond her capabilities. They gathered around the firing line with obvious anticipation of witnessing a spectacular failure. "Target is at 300 meters, announced the range instructor, setting up a standard marksmanship challenge. "Single shot, standing position." Reina settled into her shooting stance with movements that suggested extensive training and practice. Her positioning was professional, her breathing was controlled, and her preparation routine followed protocols that indicated years of experience with precision shooting. The shot, when it came, surprised everyone with its suddenness and the apparent lack of visible impact on the target. Soldiers gathered around the spotting scopes and binoculars, looking for evidence of where the bullet had struck. "I don't see any hole in the target," announced Private Martinez, scanning the target face through binoculars. "Looks like a complete miss." The reaction from the assembled soldiers was immediate laughter and confirmation of their expectations about support personnel attempting combat skills. "I told you she didn't know what she was doing," said Corporal Davis, with obvious satisfaction. "Probably didn't even hit the target frame, let alone the scoring area." Private Johnson was even more direct in his mockery. "Maybe we should set up a bigger target next time, like the side of a barn." But Range Officer Master Sergeant Collins, a veteran with over 20 years of experience in marksmanship training, was not laughing. He had been observing the shot from a different angle, and something about what he had witnessed didn't match the soldiers' assumptions about a missed target. Instead of joining in the laughter, Master Sergeant Collins walked slowly toward the target area, examining both the target face and the area behind it with careful attention. His expression was serious and increasingly puzzled as he studied the shooting position and calculated the bullet's trajectory. "Sergeant," called out Private Rodriguez, "she missed the whole target. We can set up another one if you want to give her another chance to embarrass herself." But Master Sergeant Collins raised his hand for silence and continued his examination. He moved behind the target stand and studied the concrete wall that served as the range's backstop, looking for something that the soldiers gathered around the firing line couldn't see from their position. When he found what he was looking for, his expression changed dramatically. He stood motionless for a long moment, studying the evidence before him, then slowly turned back toward the group of soldiers, who were still chuckling about the apparent missed shot. "Everyone needs to see this," he said quietly, his voice carrying an authority that immediately silenced the laughter and drew the attention of every person on the range. The bullet went straight through the center of the target and embedded in the concrete wall behind it. The trajectory was as straight as a laser. That wasn't an amateur shot. Range officer's account. What Master Sergeant Collins had discovered behind the target would completely transform how everyone present understood what they had just witnessed. As the soldiers gathered around the backstop area, they could see clear evidence of something that none of them had considered possible. The bullet had not missed the target at all. Instead, it had passed through the exact center of the target with such precision that it had left only a perfectly round hole that was barely visible from the firing line. The bullet had continued its trajectory and embedded itself deep in the concrete wall behind the target, creating a small crater that spoke of tremendous accuracy and power. "Holy shit," whispered Private Martinez, staring at the bullet hole in the concrete. "She didn't miss. She shot straight through the bullseye and into the wall behind it." Master Sergeant Collins examined the trajectory line from the firing position to the impact point on the concrete. "This is a perfect center shot," he announced to the stunned group of soldiers. The bullet went through the target so cleanly that it barely disturbed the paper, then traveled another 50 meters to strike the backstop. The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. Every soldier present understood that they had just witnessed shooting performance that exceeded anything they had achieved during the entire morning of competition, and they had completely misunderstood what they were seeing. "Ma'am," Master Sergeant Collins said, addressing Reina with newfound respect, "where did you learn to shoot like that? That level of precision requires advanced training and extensive practice." But before Reina could respond, something fell from her jacket pocket as she moved a step away from the firing line. The small silver object that hit the ground caught the attention of Sergeant Peterson, who bent down to retrieve what appeared to be a military challenge coin. When Peterson looked at the coin's inscription, his expression changed dramatically. "Kraken Unit, 2/11 Eliminations," he read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. The effect of those words on the assembled soldiers was immediate and electric. Kraken Unit was legendary within military circles, known for conducting the most dangerous and classified sniper operations in recent military history. The number 211 Eliminations represented a level of combat effectiveness that was almost mythical. "Ma'am," Peterson said, his voice filled with awe and growing recognition, "are you telling us that you're a Kraken Unit sniper?" Reina looked around at the faces of soldiers who now viewed her with confusion, respect, and growing understanding of who had been working among them unrecognized for months. "Sergeant," she replied quietly, "that's not a designation I use anymore. I'm here to support current training operations, not to revisit past assignments." But Master Sergeant Collins was processing the implications of having one of the military's most accomplished snipers working unrecognized in his training facility. Kraken Unit snipers are legends in the special operations community. Your service record must include some of the most challenging shots ever attempted under combat conditions. As word of Reina's identity began to spread through the group, the soldiers who had been making jokes about supply clerks and amateur hour found themselves confronted with the reality that they had been dismissing someone whose combat achievements far exceeded anything they had accomplished. "Ma'am," said Private Johnson, his voice barely audible, We owe you an apology that we can never adequately express. We had no idea about your background or your service to our country. But it was Staff Sergeant Williams who best understood the significance of what they had just witnessed. 211 confirmed eliminations means 211 enemy combatants neutralized under hostile conditions. How many American lives were saved because of your precision shooting during active operations? Reina's response revealed the character and humility that had defined her military service and continued to guide her despite her current circumstances. I don't count lives saved, Sergeant. I just tried to make sure that every mission was completed successfully and every team member came home safely. The emotional weight of that statement settled over the group as they began to understand not just Reina's technical capabilities, but the personal cost of her transition from active combat operations to support duties. "Ma'am," said Master Sergeant Collins, "with your background and achievements, you could have any position in advanced marksmanship training. Why are you working in logistics instead of preparing our best shooters for combat operations?" For the first time since the shooting demonstration began, Reina showed emotion. Her composed expression softened slightly as she considered how to explain her choice to step away from the world of active sniper operations. "Master Sergeant," she said quietly, "after my last deployment with Kraken Unit, I lost my spotter and several team members during a mission in Syria. I decided that I had contributed enough to direct combat operations. I requested assignment to support roles because I wanted to help prepare other soldiers without returning to active shooting duties." The silence that followed was respectful and profound. Everyone present understood that they were in the presence of someone who had not only achieved extraordinary success in the most dangerous military operations, but who had also paid a personal price that led her to choose a different form of service. "Ma'am," said Corporal Davis, using a tone of respect that was completely different from his earlier mockery, "would you be willing to share some of your experience with us? Not as a formal instructor, but just as someone who has been where we're training to go." Reina looked around at the faces of soldiers who now viewed her with admiration and respect, rather than dismissal and condescension. "The most important thing I can teach you," she said gently, "is that marksmanship isn't about impressive shooting demonstrations or competition scores. It's about bringing your teammates home alive." She picked up her challenge coin and placed it carefully back in her jacket pocket. "Every shot you take in training should prepare you to protect someone else when it matters most." As the soldiers began to process what they had learned about Reina's background and achievements, Master Sergeant Collins approached her with obvious gratitude and respect. "Ma'am," he said formally, "thank you for reminding us that expertise and heroism often work quietly in the background, supporting missions and preparing warriors without seeking recognition or glory. If you've ever witnessed someone quietly astound everyone around them, type, 'I owe an apology' in the comments below." In the weeks following the extraordinary shooting demonstration, word spread throughout the military training community about the legendary sniper who had been working unrecognized as a logistics coordinator. But despite offers of promotion, advanced instructor positions, and return to active sniper duties, Reina Vasquez made a choice that surprised everyone who had witnessed her remarkable marksmanship. She declined all offers to resume active combat operations or accept positions that would publicize her background and achievements. The morning after her identity was revealed, Reina simply returned to her logistics responsibilities, continuing to manage ammunition supplies and equipment with the same quiet professionalism she had always shown. But everything had changed in how the training facility viewed her and themselves. The soldiers who had mocked her shooting attempt now approached their interactions with support personnel with completely different attitudes. "She taught us that we don't know the stories of the people who work alongside us," Private Johnson told anyone who would listen. "How many other support workers have backgrounds that we've never bothered to learn about?" Master Sergeant Collins implemented new procedures requiring all facility personnel to document their complete military experience and specialized training, regardless of their current assignment. We can't afford to overlook capabilities that could enhance our training programs, he explained to his command staff. The facility's equipment maintenance area, previously seen as routine support function, became a place where soldiers sought opportunities to learn from someone whose expertise far exceeded their own. Reina found herself answering technical questions and providing guidance that went far beyond basic ammunition management. "Ma'am," said Staff Sergeant Williams during a quiet moment between training sessions, "would you be willing to provide some unofficial marksmanship guidance to our advanced students? Not as a formal instructor, but just sharing some of your experience?" Reina smiled with the same gentle patience she had always shown. "Sergeant, I'm here to support training in whatever way is most helpful. If sharing experience helps prepare soldiers for successful missions, then I'm honored to contribute." The facility's training bulletin board, previously filled with course schedules and safety reminders, now featured a simple handwritten note. She pierced the wall, "Respect those who serve quietly." Word of Reina's background reached the Army's premier sniper school, where her former instructors remembered her record-setting performance and extraordinary achievements during precision shooting training. They sent a commendation recognizing her demonstration and inviting her to join their instructor cadre if she ever chose to return to active shooting duties. But Reina's response reflected her commitment to the support mission she had chosen. "I'm grateful for the recognition," she replied, "but my place is ensuring that current soldiers have the training support they need to succeed in their missions." Late one evening, as Reina completed her logistics duties and prepared ammunition for the next day's training exercises, she sat quietly in her office and pulled out the silver challenge coin that had revealed her extraordinary past. The inscription, "Kraken Unit, 211 Eliminations," seemed to glow under her desk lamp, reminding her of teammates who hadn't made it home and missions that had required precision, shooting under the most dangerous conditions imaginable. "Brothers," she whispered to the quiet office, "I'm still serving. Different mission, same commitment to preparing warriors who will bring each other home safely." The challenge coin represented not just her combat achievements, but her ongoing dedication to supporting others in their service. Logistics work might not involve pulling triggers, but it ensured that other soldiers had the ammunition and equipment they needed when their lives depended on reliable weapons performance. As she prepared to leave the facility for the evening, several of the soldiers from the shooting demonstration approached her with obvious gratitude and respect. "Ma'am," said the young soldier who had been most mocking of her earlier, "thank you for showing us that heroes often work in the most ordinary places, making sure the rest of us are ready for extraordinary challenges." Type, "I will live with honor if you believe that one silent shot can move an entire community." This story isn't just about a shooting demonstration or a logistics coordinator who turned out to be a legendary sniper. It's about something much deeper that affects every workplace, every organization, and every community, where people make assumptions about each other based on current roles rather than complete backgrounds and life experiences. Every day, in military units and civilian organizations around the world, there are people like Reina Vasquez, combat veterans working in support roles, former special operations personnel who chose quieter careers after completing extraordinary service, accomplished professionals who stepped away from high-profile positions to serve others in less visible ways after experiencing trauma or loss. We dismiss them because their current job titles don't match our expectations of what achievement and capability should look like. We assume that anyone working in a support role must lack the qualifications for more demanding positions. We forget that many people choose their circumstances based on personal healing, family priorities, or a desire to serve in different ways after experiencing events that change their perspectives on life and service. The tragedy isn't just that we're disrespectful to people who have already given more than most of us ever will. The tragedy is what organizations lose when they fail to recognize and learn from the expertise that exists among people they've categorized as support staff. How many problems could be solved more effectively if we understood the complete capabilities of everyone on our team? Think about the people in your own workplace or community whose backgrounds you don't really know. the administrative assistant who handles complex problems with unusual competence, the maintenance worker who approaches every challenge with calm confidence that suggests extensive experience, the quiet colleague who never talks about their past but always seems to know exactly what to do in difficult situations. What experiences might they carry from previous careers or military service? What skills might they have developed during years of high-pressure responsibility? What wisdom might they have gained from navigating challenges that most people never face? Reina's story reminds us that true expertise often chooses humility over recognition. People who have proven themselves in the most demanding circumstances often feel no need to advertise their achievements or demand acknowledgement for their capabilities. They know their worth isn't dependent on other people's recognition or validation. The soldiers who initially mocked Reina weren't necessarily cruel or deliberately disrespectful. They were products of a culture that emphasizes current roles and visible achievements. But their willingness to learn and change after discovering her background shows that growth and understanding are possible when we're open to recognizing our assumptions and biases. Tomorrow, you'll encounter people whose stories you don't know and whose capabilities might surprise you if circumstances ever revealed them. Before you decide who deserves respect and who doesn't, remember the quiet logistics coordinator whose shot went straight through the target and into the concrete wall behind it. Because the person you're overlooking today might be exactly the expert whose past achievements made your current security and opportunities possible. If you believe in stories that reveal the hidden heroes around us, share this story and don't forget to subscribe to NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people creating real stories, not mass-produced AI content.